Hi, Brittany.
Hey Megan,
How's it going?
maybe I can't hear you. Maybe I'm not talking. Let's
There you go.
repeat.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Really? I can hear you.
I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? Troy, can you talk?
Mute. Hi,
I
Troy.
can't hear anyone.
I
Oh my
can hear
gosh,
both of
what's
you
wrong with my
two.
computer?
Do you have it on mute?
What's wrong with my computer?
No.
I'll check.
That's happened to me.
What kind of a computer does she have? If she has a Lenovo, it's probably got an issue like mine did.
I have no idea what Elkhorn has. I think they have
Mhm.
HP, but I don't know.
She's got a Lenovo. I want to throw mine across the room, I swear.
Is that what your school gives you?
Yes, they're heavy as hell, just to be honest. They're not I'm an old discus thrower and I feel like throwing this one across. I'm just telling you.
Using the old
Oh,
skills.
absolutely. Break it out. Break it
Finally.
out.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, like that whole time I'm
Okay.
like, that was all I could see was your mouths moving.
We weren't actually talking. We were just moving our mouths.
Yeah, just seeing if you get just messing with you.
Yeah, that's what the kids say too. I wasn't playing a video game. We were just
Mhm.
acting like it. Yeah, okay.
I wasn't doing anything. I was just looking down at my lap. Yeah.
Yeah, my phone's not in my lap.
No.
Anyway, I don't even have the slideshow open yet. Let me get that open. Sorry. I
Yeah.
All
got
So
right.
just like looking at it, I just made those three slides. You can tell me if I was like wrong in interpreting it, but I understood that we were supposed to make categories. I just put some in. We did not have to keep the ones I put in, but we needed to like 6 to 9. And then we were supposed to look at a sample action plan. So I attached Gretna's new one that we just came out with. And I just thought we could discuss the parts of it, just like preview it. Does that sound good?
It does. Um, what I threw on there that last slide is a placeholder, guys. So as I panicked this week, you saw that. I was trying to find out why we didn't have a grade on our information, and I reached out to Dr. C. In the interim of that, I asked him a couple questions, and I got some feedback that might be useful for us in terms of when he organizes the superintendent committees. I plan on using, and I was two superintendents I've worked with use something called a committee of the whole, and basically what that is what is referenced on that slide. So Mike and I had a good conversation about that. So as we're going through what Megan was referring to, we might be able to use some of that information. And there's my slide right there. It's a committee of the whole. It's basically using administrators inside of those subcommittees. And then the principals are on there as well, embracing that role of a servant leader. So I put that on there as a very, very last slide. We don't have to use it, but if we want something for information that Mike and I have already talked about, we might be able to use that as a reference point.
Perfect.
Make
Yeah,
sense?
Hmm.
I'm fine with talking about it, and maybe you can kind of lead that slide if you'd like. That sounds like a good thing to add. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. I mean, had a good conversation with him, and like I said before, I said last time we met, he's behind on grading, and then I didn't heed my own advice. So um, he is behind on grading. So
Um,
Guys
and then
didn't.
that next one is the stakeholders. Todd, did you do that one?
I did. I didn't know if that's
Perfect.
what we're supposed to do, so I thought, okay, I'll throw that on there.
That was my understanding. We were just supposed to choose one of the categories and then put who would be the stakeholders.
Okay.
So if you want to kind of lead that one and we can all give input, I
Okay.
can kind of lead the sample action plan, just like overview, talk about it, and then everyone just add. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
what else was the criteria? Does anybody remember exactly how that was worded?
Well,
Austin, what was your question, my friend?
Uh, I was I was kind of confused on what we were supposed to do because Megan threw all this stuff together, and I was sitting here like, well, I kind of feel like I'm just tagging along. Am I supposed to add something? So that was kind of my text this afternoon. Like, what do you want me to add, or what do you want me? How do you want me to put in my part to this? But as I read it over and over, it's like I think we already got all the slides we need, and we're just supposed to record us kind of discussing what we have up.
Yeah, that was my understanding is that it didn't seem
Yeah.
like we needed a ton of information, more just discussion.
Yeah, I'm looking at it again. I think we hit it right on the head. Austin, you're just a latch. You like to feed off of other people. I'm just
That's how
telling
I
you
feel.
right now.
That's how I feel right now. Everyone's got
Yeah.
a slide, and I'm just hanging out today, I think.
It's all good, man.
Just
It's all
here.
good. It's all good. Yeah, so as a group, review the elements of a sample action plan. As a group, discuss what stakeholders would need to be represented on a steering committee. That's done. And as a group, use Zoom to record your group discussing B through D and then post your video. So I think we use the Gretna plan, talk through it, and go from there. I did tag in the bottom of my slide as well the strategic plan from Raymond Center just in case we get stuck. So we're ready to roll, you guys. I think we're good
Yep.
here.
Well,
Does
How about
someone want to do the categories, Brittany or Austin?
yeah, I can, or what, but the category, where does it say that in when you read that, Troy, what did it say? Wasn't this the like categories of the district as a, like every district should have, or what did
no,
that?
we are supposed to use consensus to determine 6 to 9 categories. So we can say after discussing, we've come up with these 6 categories. Because it would say fit into the examples he gives is building grounds transportation, budget, finance and grants, technology, community, personnel, teaching and learning, activities, governance, Americanism, wellness, and special education. I don't know, do we have special education?
We do
Maybe we
not.
want to add that one.
Yeah, I think we probably want to add that one.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we're pretty well covered. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and it's just like categories that should be within a district, like groups they
Correct.
should have within a district, Brittany.
Yes, that's what I was remembering, but then I was like, wait, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
All
And
right.
And this
and-
is recording, but like I can cut it off when I post it, so it's
Perfect.
not a big deal. Okay, somebody want to introduce us, or I can?
Go ahead, Brittany, and then you can start us off.
All right, group 2, week 11, putting your problem resolutions into action. So the first thing our group discussed was the categories, the 6 to 9 categories that every district should have. And our categories that we decided together were curriculum, instruction, and assessment, growth, climate and culture, recruit and retainment of employees, adaptability and innovation, like keeping up to date with technology, and then adapting to societal needs, whatever that might look like. The community as a whole, the school community, the community within that district, and then finances, budget, and special education were our categories. Anybody want to add or explain any of those further? Okay.
I think we're good.
All right, so we attached the Gretna Public Schools sample strategic plan from this year. And so if we go to the table of contents, it just kind of shows us what's all in the strategic plan. They start off with the mission statement and the philosophies and the core beliefs of Gretna because that's what drives. That's what drives everything that we do. It's what is the foundation. So we start off by reviewing those. Then it went in and it just gave an overview. So if we scroll down we go past the mission, philosophy, core beliefs, we have the 4 categories that they chose to do. So focused on 4: curriculum, instruction, and assessment, growth, climate and culture, mental health, and recruit and retain. So we talked about those 6 to 9 categories, kind of that like we would come up with ourselves, but Gretna decided to just focus on 4 so we could give all of our efforts towards those 4. So they have those, and then they have the overall goal beneath. But then as you keep scrolling, you'll see they can break down each goal even more into more sample action steps. So if we scroll down a little bit, you keep going to a next one. So here's the curriculum in one. Yeah, you can go down. And this is the implementation schedule. So they have it each year because you do your strategic plan for 5 to 6 years. So we have that. and it breaks it down into strategies. Some strategies that go towards every area of the school, some are geared more towards certain levels or certain areas within the district. But they break it down even more. So you have your overarching goal and then their steps and how they're going to keep track of those steps as we go throughout the years. It made me think of like when we looked at like oh, someone's gonna have to help me with this. But when you kept your documentation. This is what it really reminded me of, our documentation charts to make sure you were on track or how you had to adjust. So I thought that was really neat to see that translate from our book to actually my district's plan.
Yes.
And then they'll go through and they'll show it for each of those 4 action steps. So that's like what it encompasses then.
Cool.
You can see that some action steps are not filled out because those need to be done within a smaller committee now. So we talked about how we have like the overarching, like our district head committee was made up of all different people, like we've taught all different stakeholders. And now then the action steps, a lot of times now we take it back to our building and we make our own action steps for our building because my elementary school, in order to implement something, looks a lot different than the middle school or a high school does. And so we make our own action steps within our building to then help contribute to this goal.
What's really important to remember is, and those of us that were hot off the school improvement class, was the fact that the school improvement plan and the strategic plan are different. However, when we talk about the stakeholder groups, we need to remember that we're trying to encompass as much of a stakeholder population as we can in those conversations. And so Gretna's plan does a great job of setting the table for that and allowing you to differentiate that accordingly. So I like the fact that the action steps are there, but those have to be filled in as you're working the subcommittee. So I do like the way that plan is set up.
I know something we're running into as a problem is like as we add more buildings, like we said, all stakeholders need to be represented. So we're adding more buildings. And so the groups are getting so big to make sure you have representation from grade levels, each building, each area of the school. So that is something that'll be interesting as we continue to grow, how they make sure all voices are still heard.
Do you think, Megan, then as you add elementaries, does each elementary kind of implement this according to their building need, or is there a straight elementary strategic plan? That's what we're going to do.
No, each elementary school gets to implement it for how it would work for their building.
Yeah. And the other piece on that too that kind of goes along with it, as superintendents, we should always make sure that when we're setting up the board agenda, that the strategic plan is embedded into that agenda. That's one of the things we've talked about also in some other classes. You, as a school board, and we're talking now, but even as school board and superintendents, a strategic plan should be driving our decisions as we meet and have, as we discuss different things, different facets of the district. So, and then the other interesting part of that is the same 4 things that you listed there is what Plasmith came up with this year. And I think probably everybody's doing strategic plans right now. The mental health aspect is going to be a big part of that.
That is definitely something that I would say is new to a lot of strategic plans. It is new to Gretna's. It hasn't been on ours before in the previous years. So it's cool to see how they adapt as the times change.
Yeah, Todd, I just kind of want to reiterate what you just said. I we redid our strategic plan this year for Columbus Public Schools. First time being on a committee to build that, but from here on, all the meetings I've been on since we've completed that, there's always a repetition. If this has nothing to do with reaching a goal of our strategic plan, we're not going to waste our time on it. So it always comes back to
Yeah.
how is this going to reach something on our strategic plan? So that's what we're always trying to answer. And if it doesn't, we kind of redirect where we want to go.
Yeah, that's good.
Anything else in here?
I think we're good with that.
Okay.
We kind of looked at we started putting together a stakeholder and just using the curriculum instruction assessment piece. Obviously, you'd have your administration, representative administration on there, um, director of instructional services, or whatever title that might be. Could be curriculum director, however that's titled in different districts. At the high school level, department chairs, at the middle school level, maybe team representatives, then obviously a special education director, maybe parent representatives, non-certified with a paraprofessional. If there's a data coordinator, that's always good to have a part of all those conversations. And then, um, Board of Education representative, I don't know if that would be at the forefront of that, or if that'd be more on, you'd involve your Committee on American Civics um, uh, in that one, because they do a lot of the same things here with the curriculum piece. So having this core group for your stakeholders to get the ball rolling and to start looking at things, I think would be important. What does everybody else, is there other things on there that other schools could think of or districts are doing?
I think we've touched on it too. One of the groups that, if you remember clear back when I throughout it was determined to be an action plan at that point, early on in the assignment, I had SEL on there. Megan just alluded to that. So, social emotional learning is another category that, as we're talking, that could possibly be on there as a stakeholder group too. But where is that coming from? Who are those specialists that are in that group? I think you've got it covered in our groups that it falls in there somewhere. So we've touched on it, but where does that fit? Because I hate to say this and be political, but that's not being recognized like it should be at the national level. That social emotional learning is going to be something that's supported, but it is a real thing for us. So as we start looking at this in a bigger picture, I think it's very, very important it's embedded into those conversations.
Um,
Um,
I know we adopt new curriculum all the time. So right now we're in our math adoption. And so it's been cool to see it's a 2-year implementation at our school. And so the stakeholders that have been involved, they've also involved some students in it too. And by the way they involve students is that they implement like we do like a course run of like that curriculum for like a week in the classroom and they test out like our top 3 and then they get like feedback both like from like formative and summative assessments from the students but also like how are the students liking it, their like personal feedback. And so I thought that was like kind of cool, but it is also like you have to take the students probably like feedback with a grain of salt because you have to hit certain categories as well. I know there's certain things we look for, but I do think that is a very neat thing that they put it into action and teachers can see how it's working with the students instead of just like hearing about it from the people that are trying to sell it.
And that's a great idea. The people who are, the people who are going to be, you want to benefit from it, they should be the ones that you are getting the feedback from, saying, and then you got some measurable growth there. Maybe over the course of the 3 weeks, you could see, wow, I really improved. And it's more understanding for me, rather than just the adults in the world choose something, say, this is what you're going to learn. So yeah, I like that idea.
And even with our list, we might have, like within what you have, you could have people that are in these groups already doing that curriculum development of SEL because Elkhorn's adding that curriculum too as well. And I'm a department chair, but I'm also on that curriculum development from like there's teachers in the elementary school, middle school, and the high school. And so some of us would already be in some of these groups, which is good too. But yeah, maybe another group would need to be thought about.
I just wonder on the school board, the board of education, would we want those individuals involved in the adoption or the search, um, or do we want to take that to the school board and have them vote that in as to something we're moving for? I guess when we're talking about curriculum, and
Mhm.
I don't know if they would have too much of it influence, I guess, on if you're having a few school board members rather than all the school board members. What would that look like, and how would you take it to a vote then, or would there be? I guess that's just a question that popped in my head when you put that out.
That's
Yeah,
an go ahead, Todd. You were saying something.
well, I was gonna say, when I put that in there, I also thought, I don't know if they would be in the ground for it, because what would happen is, like in our district, and I think all districts, you would have your people do the work for it, and then you take it to the Committee on American Civics, who looks at your curriculum, and they would take it to the full board if that's how we wanted to implement it. So that's kind of why I put that in there, where you would have those representatives, but it would be more of, once we found the curriculum that we wanted to adopt, and our Director of Instructional Services would meet with that committee, tell
That
them
makes
this
sense.
is our process we've done.
Yeah, that makes total sense in my mind.
So, one of the next slides, I think if we get to that point, one of
Hmm.
the conversations I had with Dr. C on this, folks, is exactly what you're alluding to. The complexion of those groups, um, and I'll come back to the committee of the whole. He offered that an administrator should be on each of those, and he was personally on three of the committees that he was referring to. Let's say Americanism committee was one of those. That'd be the one that deals with curriculum that you gentlemen were just referring to, and then each principal sits on three of them. And then the board member has two members on there. So his take was it helps with that motion and it helps guide that motion. So and what I'm hearing from him, he was not afraid as a superintendent to have them there, and certainly if they wanted to guide direction and answer questions. So there's philosophies with that.
Hmm.
The reason I bring that up is because we have to embrace that role of that servant leadership piece and be a facilitator, helping guide them along. And then the idea of the committee of the whole then is that we're meeting with these committees prior to ever getting to a board meeting. So we have all those committees, like the stakeholder groups we just had in the previous slide. These groups are all meeting before we get to a board meeting and having some conversation, making recommendations before we ever get forward on something else. And so that's how a committee of the whole works. Now it's a little farther down the road than where we are with our stakeholders group, but that's what I asked of Dr. C. And he gave great guidance on when those summaries go to the board, that progress should then be reported out. He talked about it in terms of we got to think of our action plan as being like a lesson plan. So when we go into having the conversation with our groups, be thinking of it in terms of a lesson plan, like in a classroom. We got to teach them along what we're trying to get to, what the end point is before we start. And so that's kind of an interesting perspective that I got when I had my conversation with him.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, he had like one committee each month reported out on what was going on, so that it took over the course of the year, I believe, something like that. In a conversation I had with him as well. And I think that's a great idea. And really, like, we've learned through a lot of if we're getting towards the end of this program, you don't really you want your decisions made before you get to the open board meeting. You don't want to be talking about committee things at the board meeting, because you hopefully, when you get ready to vote on things, you've already done the background work, the work. So if you are going to adopt a curriculum at your July board meeting, you certainly hope that whoever, that all the stakeholders, all of the people have presented the information, and you've done all your research, so that now it's just a matter of the board knows what you're looking at, and or whatever decision you're making through this whole plan, that there's not a whole lot of discussion at that point. Your discussion should be done in these committee meetings, like you've mentioned, Troy.
One last thing is I think we have to remember the size of the district matters too. So, um,
100%.
you
Hmm.
know, Gretna, Columbus, schools that are larger than I think Stanton is not. It's not substantial. So he had basically three administrators. So if he has nine groups, nine committees, of course they're going to be on three groups. I mean, he's going to differentiate it that way. However, Gretna might have nine administrators. So they put them on each of them on a specific committee on based on their skill set. Don't know what it looks like, and I think it really matters on the size of the school system. So. Todd, how many administrators do you have in Plasma?
We have two at each building, so six, and then the superintendent be seven, sped director be eight, early childhood coordinator be nine.
And
I don't
Austin,
even, I was starting to try to count and I'm like, at my
Yeah.
admin building alone, we have way more than that. And
Yeah.
then like I think of like we have 8 elementaries and then we are gonna have 3 middle schools. And each middle school has at least two. Our high schools all have 4. Like,
Wow.
so it just adds up real quick.
Same with Elkhorn. I was like thinking of high school and middle schools, and I'm like, okay, now I'm lost because I don't even know, you know. Then there's how many elementaries? Yeah, we just
Mhm.
have so many. 100, I don't know, 80, a lot.
When you guys do like those admin interns, I'm not for sure the name too, where like almost a vice principal at the elementary that float too. So then you have those people.
Yep. And I count them as administrators because they do
Yeah.
that job. Absolutely.
Austin, how many meetings do you have to attend based on your different roles that you have? Do you feel like you're meetinged out?
Um, yeah, I attend a lot. I don't attend as much as our 12th grade principal. Our she runs our alternative education program as well. She's in meetings all day, every day long. It's kind of I feel bad for how many meetings she's in all day, every day. So I'm not as bad as her, but we do find ourselves in meetings a lot of time during the day.
I feel
Aus-
like I'm in meetings all the time.
Austin, are you an assistant principal or are you a head?
Assistant principal.
How many principals do you guys have at your high school?
There's 3 assistants, our head principal, and the athletic director, who kind of
Oh,
an assistant principal as well. So
That's how ours is too.
and we have 7 total in our district. I have basically 3 at my school.
Mhm.
I have an MTSS coordinator, assistant principal, AD assistant principal, and then yours truly. I don't do anything. So,
Yeah,
um,
right.
but with all that being said, there's 3 in my building alone, but we all have very differentiated duties. So,
Mhm.
I just like the conversation that I was able to have with Dr. C to give us some guidance on this. But the action plan is very solid from Gretna to give us some direction there. I think our stakeholders, we have a good collection of what that is, and I think it really is dependent on the task we're trying to accomplish. So we got to keep that in mind. Austin, your stakeholder group was different for your action plan.
mhm.
Megan, yours is different from Brittany's, and Brittany's different from Todd's. So I mean, we all have a little different look at what we're trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.